think that if everybody is only accountable to his own conscience will make a good world, you are a fool.
Correct.
Only a fool can believe that. Because only a fool could believe we are that good that we can answer to ourselves alone.
Right.
But we're not basically good. The will of man's heart is towards evil from his youth. Genesis.
Right.
God's statement about the human being. Doesn't mean we're only evil, but hey, as I often point out, how many parents say to their kids, you know something? You really share too much. You got to learn to be a little more selfish. And therefore, that's why in God we trust matters. Not for theological reasons, because if we believe in God, God will repay us. I believe that too, but that's beside the point. And that's not always true. There are people who believe in God who have suffered. So, but as a community, fine. I don't care what your theology is. I care whether you think rationally. Rationally, we have a choice. God or government. And I'd rather have people feel responsible to God. And by the way, specifically the God of the Judeo-Christian Bibles. Okay? That's the God I'm talking about. Not just any God. They didn't believe in just any God, the founders. It was a very specific God. And that's fine. That God, the God of, if you will, how's this? The God of the Ten Commandments. I'll live with that. If people lived by the Ten Commandments, the world would be heavenly. Just the Ten Commandments. There is no oppressed group in America. There are people with difficulties personally because life is hard. That's the big difference between a conservative and a leftist. Everyone has a hard life. Some obviously more than others. But the conservative who has a hard life understands life is hard. The leftist who has a hard life blames America.
Right.
That is the great difference between left and conservative. The American Trinity is, in God we trust, e pluribus unum, and liberty. The left is attempting to destroy all three. They want to replace liberty with equality. They want to replace e pluribus unum, from many one, with multiculturalism, with identity politics. What do you mean we're all American? Give me a break. You're black. You're Hispanic. You're this, you're that.
Right. That's right.
All American? Oh, it sounds to them like fascism, like all German.
Wow.
That's how they think of it. And they want to replace in God we trust, of course, with a godless society. So they are literally, you have the American value system and the left-wing value system, and if one wins, the other loses. It is not a bridgeable gap. This notion when people it drives me crazy. Well, can we find a common ground? No. There is no common ground between American values and left-wing values. There is a common ground between American values and liberal values, but not left-wing values. There isn't. It's an unbridgeable gap. If the left wins, America is over. That's it. There may be a country called the United States of America, though who knows? Maybe not. Because there will be open borders. Maybe it'll be called something else. Must understand that this is an existential battle for what America is. These three values are not left-wing values. But I want to give you one example on a specific notion, and end with that, from my study, my lifelong study of the Bible. And this will be new to most of you, or certainly to any of you who have not heard me speak about this on the radio. To understand the Hebrew Bible, and certainly carried on by Christians, you have to understand it is rooted in the concept of distinction. In fact, the Hebrew word for holy, kadosh, means distinct. Distinct and holy are essentially the same thing. That's how important distinctions are. That's why I have a trick question. I didn't make it up. Somebody made it up and got me. Now I use it. But I didn't come up with this. What did God create on the second day? Nobody gets it. And the answer is separations. That's how important separation is, physical or whatever. But distinction is everything. So I'm going to give you a list of distinctions that are central to the Hebrew Bible, to the Old Testament, if you will, and to Christianity as well, but they're founded in the Old Testament, and which the left is making war on, in no order of importance. The first distinction is man and animal. We humans are created in God's image, animals are not.
Right.
But if there's no God, there really is no difference between human and animal. And that is what is taught. That is why when I was a kid, we would say human beings and the animals. Now they say human beings and other animals. It's a very interesting insertion of the term other. We're just an animal. That's all we are. There has tremendous ramifications. One obvious one is, can you kill a pig to use its heart valve to save a person who needs a heart valve? PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, believe that you cannot, because a pig is no less valuable than a human. In fact, the only time I ever yelled at a guest was the guy who came up with the program for PETA called Holocaust on Your Plate. This is the biggest animal rights group in America, maybe in the world. You know what it is? This is their program. You check it out, because even those of you who know I don't make things up, many will find it hard to believe. I fully understand that. So it's called Holocaust on Your Plate. It's very simple. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals has the belief, and it advocated the belief, that barbecuing of chickens in America is the moral equivalent to the cremating of Jews in the Holocaust.
Wow.
By the way, it's a secular Jew who developed the idea. And my distinction is man-animal. The left is destroying that distinction. We are just animals who can speak, or animals with more self-consciousness. That's it. Animals with language. But we're animals. Man-God. Marx said it, man is God. If you are the source of morality, you're God. It's very simple. You don't need God to tell you right or wrong. You can tell you right or wrong. You are the source of morality. So that distinction is obliterated. Third distinction, parent-child, or even adult-child. That the left now wants the vote to go to 16-year-olds is perfectly appropriate, because they don't see an adult-child distinction. They believe we have a lot to learn from 16-year-olds. I don't. I think we have almost nothing to learn from 16-year-olds. But here is the key point. That's what I thought when I was 16. I knew I had nothing to teach adults. I knew it. I bought the idea that adults knew more or had more wisdom than I did. I didn't buy the idea of my stupid generation, never trust anyone over 30. Because I was trusting people who were 2,000, 3,000 years old, not 40. The people, I was reading a book that was 3,000 years old and trusting it had more wisdom than I. But that was only available to the religious, because that's what I believed. If they think that, they say, there was a writer in the New York Times last week that who wants to vote at 16, a professor at Temple University, needless to say. The needless to say is the professor part, not the Temple.
Obviously.
Could have been any university. And the professor said, studies show that teenagers do not make any more number of mistakes than adults do. Really? So did he believe that when he wrote that? So, but what he is saying, please understand, he is saying what a leftist teacher says, whites are all racist. What is that white teacher saying? I am a racist, and therefore assume all other whites are. I make as many mistakes as a 16-year-old, therefore I assume all the other adults make the same number of mistakes. I'm not more wise than a 16-year-old, so nobody is more wise than a 16-year-old. They're generalizing from their acknowledgement. They have the wisdom of a 16-year-old, and they are racist when they say these things. That is what has happened. Predicted, though I will admit I predicted it 25 years ago in writing Man-Woman. The man-woman distinction is being obliterated.
Right.
Facebook has 56 choices, or had, I don't know if they still do, when you sign up and under gender. 56. I felt particularly offended because I was not listed. I sent in a 57th choice for them because 56 did not include me. We're told that gender or sex is non-binary. That's their claim. In the biblical worldview, it is binary.
Absolutely.
God created man and woman. That's it. That there are people who identify with the other sex is a tragedy, is sad. They have to be sympathized with. They have to be hugged. That is a separate issue entirely. It's called gender dysphoria. If you really have that, it is a curse, and my heart goes out to you. That's a separate issue. It doesn't deny that there's male and female. If you have a uterus and produce eggs, and you have XY chromosome, and you have, is that correct, the XY chromosome? XX. Or XX? XX chromosome, and breasts, and menstruate, you're a female. We know that with animals. Why is it not true? I thought we were animals. Do they believe there's non-binary animals as well? If an animal comes out with the things that I just mentioned, do they not, and a vagina, do they not say this is a female? If it comes out with a penis and testicles, do they not say it's a male? Why aren't they imposing gender identity on cattle?